and we'll do so again. And we will rise to this occasion.
The stay-at-home order will continue until April 7th. Cook County will enter 70s as the fifth person in the state to die of the virus. There are currently 585 confirmed cases in the state of Illinois. Governor Pritzker is scheduled to hold his daily news conference at 2:30 this afternoon, and we're going to take it live here on WBBM as soon as it begins. Meantime, Holy Cross Hospital on Chicago's South Side reports 4 cases of coronavirus.
Holy Cross is part of Sinai Health System, and the 4 are its first cases. One patient was diagnosed yesterday afternoon and was sent home and was told to stay there, not needing to be hospitalized. The other 3 had gone to the hospital earlier in the week, and their results also came in yesterday. Each is in isolation. The hospital was working to identify and monitor any staff members and others who came into contact with them. It's expected there will be many more positive results as more people are being tested. Mike Krauser, News Radio 105.9 FM.
If you're among the many working from home or staying home, sheltering there, ask your smart speaker to play WBBM News Radio for all the latest developments. WBBM News Time, 9:38. A staffer at Arlington Heights Senior Living Center has tested positive for coronavirus, prompting some families there to take relative.
Or a defined process, innovation, both internally and externally. I mean, those kind of things make a business more valuable. And the thing that I think is interesting is when someone buys a business, they put a lot of energy into it. They're writing a bit.
All roads, no issues or delays reported, but again, in an effort to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus, the Illinois Tollway temporarily converting to all electronic tolling. iPass customers, this means nothing to you. You can just travel the way you've been. Customers who currently use coins and currency will now be required to pass through the open road tolling lanes and iPass lanes and just pay online. On I-80 heading eastbound of Pulaski, a crash that's off on the shoulder. From the WLS AM 890 Traffic Center, I'm Dan Levy with the next update in 30 minutes.
It's a quiet night.
Dealer stock by 3/31/2020.
Don't settle for a high-rate vehicle loan. For example, they know that I work for Purity Products, a vitamin company, and they're always asking me about the latest and greatest things. And frankly, they're always expecting me to get them free bottles. And
a 3 para el sello, y al pasar el tiempo, un tío me motivó para regresar a Chivas, y regresamos, hicimos la prueba y me quedé, y de ahí surgió todas las motivaciones, no tanto como tú lo dices.
CEC.
Necesita despertar. Nosotros también como personas necesitamos despertar, porque a veces queremos tener una relación.
Ya.
Dopiero jak wtedy jakby nam nauka się tam minęła.
no intuicyjnie chciałem zapytać, czy się tam nie trafiła jakaś tragedia. Tak, właśnie.
Must be the East European station.
In this tenor, what he's basically saying is this is the one, and by saying that, it may mean that a lot of people go and rush their doctors and say, I want to get hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, which right now just puts more stress on our doctors who are on the front line dealing with this epidemic, and so it's just, it's irresponsible behavior.
So I want to read you our first question from one of our viewers who said, if I have mild symptoms of coronavirus, should I go to the hospital? I think this is one of those questions a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking that. Stay home. If you have mild symptoms, no shortness of breath, and no reason to believe that this is going to get more serious for you, i.e., you're not one of those older people or someone who has those underlying conditions that could make this extremely serious, it's best to stay home simply because folks are getting onrushed.
speaks to your American exceptionalism, is that two sides are so far apart now that they're actually going to break away from the rest of the world. And we can actually have for lack of a better word, a reinvention of our political system.
Yeah.
And it starts with the getting rid of some of the corruption that exists, as you pointed out.
ETFs. You can go to iShares or Vanguard Holdings to see what it owns. It owns, of course, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. It's going to own the things you would think. And so, these 2025 funds, it's interesting because they're just basically a basket of Vanguard funds or
a diferentes partes del mundo. Este es el momento de comprar boletos porque por ahí
It did happen, which would be a drastic step. It would be solely for monetary reasons, and not. I don't think much thought would be given to all the havoc it would wreak on the player development and scouting system in baseball, and it would hurt baseball in the long run. I mean, it would also hurt.
Why don't we consider doing an electric on-demand water heater that you could mount and suspend from the floor joists or the wall?
And that'll keep you healthy.
How many
This is Dave Ross on the CBS News Radio Network, presented by Zoom Video Conferencing. Like a lot of media people, I've been working away from
Dave Ross is a waste of time.
They can email me at define@valuesource.com or call me any way they want to contact me. Just let me know they were a listener on the show, and I'd be happy to set them up with a free evaluation of performance.
City Hall.
Thanks so much. This is AM 820 WCPT in Chicago. We'll be right back. Tune in regularly to my show, then you know that I talk to many different businesses.
Does factor in everything, and that is income, and of course that's protection too from all the retirement pitfalls. Be protected from that, and even stock market volatility, which we've.
Well, you gotta live in order to be retired.
The thing that kind of stood out to me is like so many of the local businesses also are in relationship with our Catholic charities and can and many times donate
there's
to
going to be
some of their.
Going to be a lot of people in Cook County in Chicago who are going to really regret the way they ran Catholic charities out of town.
Training camp, so I think they are going to have to be longer than
sports. Biggest emergency in 100 years, and they want to talk sports.
The breakthrough here, because with Ultimate Collagen, you fight collagen decline from the inside out, and you really do get to the root of the problem. And what you're basically doing is telling your body to produce more collagen.
Oh, what the hell was that? Yes, collagen, the cure to the coronavirus. Yeah, misplaced priorities. I like this station. It's the most reliable station all morning.
This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Artist profile. Cardi B. Cardi B, born in October of 1992, is a rapper, singer, songwriter.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah. Children, mothers put their toys at their children at risk when they buy these toys manufactured in China. And scientists have been saying for years, keep those toys out of your children's mouth. Yeah. Nobody listens to it because we all like our cheap, manufactured goods.
We've become addicted to the $450 63-inch flat screen TV made in China.
Yeah.
They just figured that out. They just figured it out just now. Oh.
Hey, Greg, I'm so sorry to hear about your brother's heart attack. Thanks. He's okay now.
Yeah, found out that Mom had the virus. Dropped dead on the floor.
Te habla el profesor Enrique. Cada día aumenta el porcentaje de parejas que tienen problemas relacionados con el amor. El divorcio, adulterio.
All right, I'm going to translate this one. We love everyone. We love the world. However, the gringos are no good unless they are a client. There are many bananas in the ceiling, and God shall return to the earth when the Bears win the playoffs. I can't handle this.
Eliminating the international signing period and the allotment of that money for this year as well. I have not heard that or seen that reported anywhere. I would again, and I'm
Yeah, these people think life is going to keep going on as usual.
Very little secret about tank water heaters. They're all made by the same three companies. It's either A.O. Smith, Bradford White, or Rheem, and then they just put everybody else's name on it. So, you know, if you go to a plumbing supply house, they'll probably have A.O. Smith or Bradford White. If you go to, there's only a Menards up there, they'll have some brand with the electric heat.
Water heaters are nice, but pretty soon you'll be heating up water in your backyard over an open fire. I believe she's saying that I'm the most handsome male in the universe. We think that Irv is the closest thing to God on this planet. Everybody should send Irv money. Lots of money. Especially if you're feeling anxious. Send Irv money.
Yeah, you heard right. 0% for 84 months on new Jeeps.
You could send me a Jeep. I'd like a Jeep.
Productivity and security are essential for kind of these consistent small businesses that continue to ultimately power their way of life because they wanted to be their own boss and they're running their customer set.
I hope that works out.
You have at least $200,000 in retirement savings, give me a call. My schedule fills up quickly. I love putting these programs together.
I bet you do.
For yourself, like your routine, like you talked about, but then also looking for one or two ways that you can help your community, whether it's getting that takeout meal, whether it's finding out, you know, what are the needs, financial or food needs of a local shelter, or, you know, what are the couple things that you can do to give yourself a little bit?
Oh, one of the things you can do is, let's say, for example, you're having a neighbor dispute. Well, think about it. Who's watching the neighbor? Isn't this time to think about taking steps with that neighbor? Well, let's think positively.
Very awesome. Todd, joining us to talk a little bit about what it means to have our masks suspended and ways that we can continue to pray as a community. I also, at the top of the show, I mentioned that this is being pre-recorded on Tuesday afternoon. Given it.
You know, some of the plays when he gains his confidence, I know through
sports.
That number again, 1-800-577-7780. And is
I have no idea what that will do for you.
Sí, la verdad sí, te repito, me pongo a ver videos con mis hijos de
monopolio que las economías mundiales han ido metiendo en las personas, por eso es que
No, czasami byłem nieśmiały, ale jeżeli chodzi o wagary, to tak jak wszyscy chodziliśmy na wagary 1 kwietnia, to był Dzień Dziecka. Ja pamiętam jedne wagary.
1 kwietnia był Prima Aprilis.
No okej, to dzisiaj były, dobra.
Ja.
authority over the coronavirus, I bind it and the Lord rebuke it. Child of God, if you need a vehicle, I want you to not move in fear, but operate from a position of faith.
All right, so everybody's running their own angle on this whole thing, and they're exploiting it and trying to manipulate people. You know, so I was just kind of waiting for the religious stations to get going. Any of you remember the Reverend Irving Feldspar with the Satan Information Network? Sin cannot exist without your money. Sin needs your money. Send me your money now at Sin. If you send me your money now, I will read your name off on this channel, off a 3x5 card in the middle of the night. I will also send you my free book, 1001 Ways to Gouge the Unwary. I intend to build my city in the middle of nowhere, and I intend to populate it with rubes and suckers. The name of the city will be Grifterville. And while most of you are suspicious, there's gonna be enough of you to fleece. And so, friends, send me your money. Send me your money now. News radio.
Press done.
News radio got reprogrammed somehow. Let's go up.
All night, News Radio 780 and 105.9 FM. Visitors hosting C's Restaurant in Northwest Park Bridge, giving people an added incentive to choose it when deciding to carry out.
Tony Antonacci says that along with the family-style dinner packages Pennyville Station Restaurant has put together, everyone gets a roll of toilet paper when picking up his or her order.
Turn this off for now. So I just ran the last of my errands for the most part. I might try to get out again. State of Illinois is going to be locked down as of 5 o'clock tonight. They're going to try to maintain a loose lockdown. However, intelligent people who have observed the pattern of what is going on have to realize that as we have moved across the last month, that slowly but surely everything is being shut down. So it is reasonable to follow that extrapolation and to assume that even more lockdowns are coming towards us. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to panic anybody. But you know something? You need to watch, be aware, and understand that history repeats. It wasn't all that long ago that we had some pretty severe quarantines. My own mother was quarantined for 6 weeks due to polio, her and her older sister. That was up in Wisconsin in 1943 or 44. The other side of the family had a grandmother who was 6 years old, quarantined in a dormitory boxcar in Clinton, Iowa, during the Spanish flu of 1918. Then there's the story going back to the other family. There was a whooping cough plague that killed one of the younger family members of my grandfather's family. There were 5 brothers. Suddenly there were 4. There's a side note about that one. Everything was fine. This was 1912, Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. Some people they knew came over with their kids, but they didn't reveal that the kids had just gone through whooping cough. They never told this family. So the visit was fine, but then a day or so later, the little child, Donald, developed whooping cough. And by the time the doctor got summoned and everything, the child had already passed away. So what can you do? well, be aware, think for yourself. The mainstream media has been pretty rotten, for years. The temptation on the part of the mainstream media is to get the story out immediately because there's so much competition. The problem with getting the story out immediately is nobody is really checking the information the way they should be. On top of that, a number of news organizations have chosen up sides, and what they do is they will present the news that will further their own agenda. So when you examine newscasts, people like me running their mouths, you have to examine it and ask yourself, well, what is the bias here? What is going on? You need to be able to check it for yourself, and you need to have to stay calm. You need to let a portion of your mind stay above the anxiety. You need to be able to think clearly, and you need to develop that part of your mind, your emotional side, that you can control your adrenaline when it peaks up, and that you can function in a atmosphere of pure terror. This is all new territory for a lot of people. They don't have the family history or the family lore of what's happened in the past. I think most people skip their history classes. People really don't have a context or anything to go by. And when you start lining up everything, and you got the media, which is, it's reasonable to say that our media is pretty incompetent. And I'm not going to take sides here. I'm pretty sure that's everybody, okay? I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are. There's at least several news outlets that have their agenda tailor-made for your political views. Hey, middle of the year when there's nothing going on and the big event is, the baseball game, that's fine. You're going to have plenty of free time to figure things out. But now, they need to put the agendas off to the side. They need to start doing some real reporting, hard reporting. There is a real danger with the reporting. Now, I can cite history for you. There were 3 wars in United States history that came about because of fake news. The first one I would mention would be the Spanish-American War of 1898. President McKinley had dispatched a battleship, the USS Maine, to Havana Harbor. It was a show of force meant to intimidate the Spanish colonial forces there in Cuba. Spain owned Cuba at the time, and suddenly we got a mystery stoplight here. When the hell did they put this up? Oh, they're working on the road, that's why. They got a spy camera up there. So we send the battleship Maine to Havana Harbor, and it blew up in the middle of the night. And the media at the time was pretty much only newspaper. And there was something going on that was called yellow journalism. Yellow journalism pretty much was sensationalism. So the battleship blowing up in Havana Harbor got totally sensationalized, and a lot of people just assumed from the get-go, including our government, that it was an infernal device planted by the Spaniards that destroyed the USS Maine. They figured it was a torpedo or a mine or something that destroyed the Maine. We're going to go by the hospital now. Wonder if they're crowded. After the war was completed, the USS Maine was raised in Havana Harbor. They checked it out, and it's pretty apparent that what had happened was the fuel exploded. The battleship Maine was coal-fired. They carried coal. I don't know if you're aware of this, but coal had a bad habit of burning up in these ship's holds in the bottom. And then you had things like coal dust, coal fires. Yes, you can have an explosion. If the fire gets out of control, it goes to your ammunition magazines. Yeah, you're going to have an explosion. So It was an internal explosion. It probably had nothing to do whatsoever with the Spaniards, but we went to war. Now we move forward about, almost 20 years. World War I, also known as the Great War. World War I, we entered World War I in the United States because the liner Lusitania was torpedoed off of Ireland. It was described as a peaceful ship, unarmed, carrying no munitions. The Germans, however, had a pretty good intelligence operation in New York City. They knew that something like 40,000, 80,000 small arms had been loaded aboard the Lusitania. The British were being cute. They thought they'd be able to smuggle all the ammunition, weapons onto the ship and nobody'd be the wiser, and then they'd have pretty much a free transit across the Atlantic to get the weapons to their own troops, their own soldiers, their own armed forces. Germans figured it out. They had a submarine waiting for the Lusitania off of Ireland. The ship got torpedoed. I can't remember how many people died. It was over 1,000. The people in the United States, again, sensationalism, it got whipped up so bad that we went to war. All right, let's go forward to Vietnam. It was like 1964, 65, 66, a place called the Gulf of Tonkin. This one's a little murkier. It would appear that on the first night of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, a 2-night incident, it would appear that the United States naval forces, which were off of Vietnam, North Vietnam, these are forces that were periodically shelling and fighting the North Vietnamese. Well, the North Vietnamese sent some patrol craft out to mess with the U.S. fleet. The U.S. fleet opened fire, and we're not sure what happened, if any of them even got hit. And that got them all agitated. Then the very next night, there was another dust-up. However, it would appear that there was no enemy, no North Vietnamese. The United States took a look at something on their radar scopes. They misidentified, misinterpreted, and they opened fire on the empty seas. Okay, so here we are intervening in this war. I'm not going to take sides in this one. I'm just going to describe what happened. But we're off of North Vietnam. They may have or may not have sent their own ships out there to chase off the United States Navy. The consequences of this were the President of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson, escalated the war beyond all belief. I mean, we got up to something like 500,000 troops in Vietnam. Altogether, I think we lost something like 50,000 dead over there. And a lot of those guys were killed after Johnson escalated the war based upon this total phony, mostly phony Gulf of Tonkin incident. You can look it up in the history. There was a Gulf of Tonkin resolution where people basically in the Congress, Senate, oh, this is so horrible that the North Vietnamese were defending their own nation. For that reason, let us escalate the war and make things totally crazy. Okay? So in other words, I just told you about 3 times when the media was not reliable and it cost United States lives. To bring this back full circle, this is what I'll tell you. Keep your heads, keep calm. We'll get through it. Don't worry too much about the future. If you have a conscience, you know what's right and what's wrong. And there's that old saying, you know, if to let evil exist, all it takes is for good people to do nothing. So at some point in time, you will probably be challenged. And if you feel that the direction of the nation is wrong, well, you're going to have to speak up. On the other hand, if you feel that the nation is going in the proper direction, well, you should probably speak up. We've had a history of the last bunch of decades where people have just been kind of complacent and they just take everything for granted. We've gone through the era of subcontracting, and I think that's about to go away. And people, you're going to have to start doing everything your own selves from now on. So I think I've ranted long enough. I'm going to let you guys figure this out. And I wish you all the best of luck and Godspeed.